Welcome in. This is the Golden Boot Podcast. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, George Hancock. I am joined by the graphics savant himself, Cody Slavinsky, a.k.a. Tiger King, and, of course, everybody's favorite, Vandy Chris. That's it. We are very excited to come to you tonight in a little bit different fashion, right? So we've been the same we've had the same flow for about a year. We started with one show, moved to two shows. We're changing things up a little bit, so we're pretty excited. This is the first you guys get to go on our maiden voyage, because this is the very first of our short episodes. And so the way it's going to work is we're going to have a Monday night normal live show, right? So you can catch the Golden Boot at the normal time, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. And then we will have little mini-sodes. I guess I've coined that term throughout the week of different topics. So tonight, this is the first one. And we'll get this thing kicked off. So the first team we want to discuss, right? We're going to go through the SEC first. The first team we want to discuss is Alabama. And Alabama finished last year really, really well. It was the signing off, so to speak, of Nick Saban, right? And so take it away, Cody. I know you've got some definitely some good information on Alabama.
Yeah, for sure. So Alabama finished 12-2 last year, fell short in the college football playoff. There was a lot of rumor talk early in the year of this is it for Nick Saban, which has been the same story for like 10 years, it feels like. And we saw a vulnerable Alabama last year, to say the least. They lose at home to Texas in a very it was a weird loss for them. A very uncharacteristic of a Nick Saban team. But then they bounce back. They go strong the rest of the season, make it to the playoff, and they meet Michigan and they go to overtime with them. And unfortunately for them, it didn't go their way. And that was it. And then it got a little bit quiet. And then some rumors started leaking that his daughter said he was retiring. And everybody's like, yeah, whatever. It's not true. Then other rumors about his daughter came out. And then next thing you know, we all wake up to the same thing. Nick Saban has officially retired, and blew my mind. I didn't know what direction they were going to go in. I didn't know who was coming in. I mean, there were so many names mentioned, but nobody truly knew. Obviously, Alabama went, they got their guy. Kalen DeBoer comes in, fresh off an appearance in the national championship with Washington, which says a lot because let's be real, no hate to Washington whatsoever. But when you look at the teams that have been dominant over the last few decades, Washington's like been in and out with it. So seeing DeBoer leave and go to Alabama was not shocking because obviously if you're offered the Alabama job, it's hard to say no to it. But when you look at his resume, he doesn't last places very long.
Right.
He usually 2-3 years tops and he goes to another job. Obviously, I think Alabama's different. Alabama's a job where you can either A, decide to retire, or B, you can use it as a catapult to get you to the NFL. So now we get to see a new look Alabama this year that honestly, I have no idea what to expect. I know the talent that they have, which I mean, a lot of Saban's guys stuck around, so that's good for them. They brought in some guys to help fill in the gaps where needed. So now we get to see a whole new era of Alabama football, which last time this happened, they won 7 games. So do I think that's going to happen again? No. But here we are. So, Chris, what are your thoughts?
I actually think this Alabama team is going to be really good. I don't think they make the college football playoffs.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that they're not a good team.
Sure.
I feel like they're going to be very competitive. I don't think they're on the same level as Georgia or Texas or even at, I'm just going to put it out there. I don't even think they're on the level of Tennessee.
Okay.
People may question that, but I'm expecting big things from Tennessee, and I think I think Alabama's probably going to lose to them. That's not to say Alabama's a bad team. I think they're a team.
Yeah.
It just they just got some teams in here that I don't think they match up well with.
Absolutely.
Well,
but you bring up an interesting point, though. A very interesting point. So you say they're not. You don't see them making the playoff, which very fair, very fine to say. But my question is, do you think now that it's an expanded playoff that rankings will be done differently than normal? Like, do you think that like the smaller teams, like last year, Air Force started out strong. Are they going to be looked at differently in a poll compared to what they were looked at previously when it was a 4-team playoff?
Do you want my honest opinion about it?
Yes.
Or
well,
Yeah,
yes,
I really do.
Hot take. Those smaller schools, the G5s, the Air Forces, they started out really good, but they didn't finish great. The UTSAs that go 12-2, the Boise States that go 11-1, 12-0, whatever, they're not going to get the love. This is going to end up being the same thing it's always been, where the little guy is left out.
Gotcha.
They have to put a G5 school in there.
Sure.
But rest assured, that's all that's getting in there. It's not going to change anything.
That is such a shame too that all these teams have to fight for one spot. I mean
exactly.
Yeah. That's a lot of pressure on their shoulders. So let's take a look at Alabama's 2024 regular season schedule. So we're not going to give our predictions yet, but just glancing at this, I can see, basically, here's the thing. If you know anything about Alabama fans, which I know quite a few, I know one in particular that is like diehard, will die in an Alabama coffin type Alabama fan. 9-3. If they go 9-3, the ceiling will be on fire.
Absolutely.
Bryant Denny may go up in smoke if they go 9-3. Because Alabama fans are so used to. Josh Pate put it very eloquently. They are trust fund fans. They're trust fund generation fans because
so
they weren't around. They weren't around when Alabama was barely winning 7 games. They weren't around, especially if anybody below the age of 30. No, they've seen nothing but Alabama dominance up until a few years back, and when Georgia, kind of took that role with Kirby Smart. But
yep.
If they go 9-3, 8-4, I mean, you're liable to see a collapse of just epic proportion in the state of Alabama. I mean,
absolutely, because this schedule sucks.
I actually disagree with that. I think a 8-4, 9-3 season is going to be just fine for them.
Well, sure, yes, we as non-Alabama fans will agree with that. Absolutely, 9-4 or 9-3, 8-4 season would be great. As a diehard Alabama fan, though, I'm telling you right now, if they go 8-4, 9-3, they're going to be distraught.
I mean, to be fair, the first loss, there will be fans calling for the job of Kalen DeBoer. Let's just be real.
Right. Just trust me. My significant other is an Alabama fan, and I'm not getting that vibe from Alabama fans. I'm just not.
I will say that I do see that side actually, because, obviously me living in Alabama, I see nothing but Alabama fans on a daily basis, and their mindset is a lot different this year. And it's kind of weird to me though. Like I've seen, but it's kind of split. So I've seen some that are like, he better come in and just keep it going. But then I've seen some like, honestly, I just looking at it, I think we're probably going to drop a few, and like, they're just kind of chill about it. I'm like, like, it's like a bizarro world we're living in. But I mean, when you look at the schedule, the worst part though is having to go on the road to Camp Randall. I mean, you have Georgia at home, then you have to go on the road to Vanderbilt, then you have South Carolina at home, but then it gets bad because then you have at Tennessee, home against Missouri, at LSU, you get a breather with Mercer, then you go to Oklahoma. That right there, that is an interesting trip. I don't have an opinion on Oklahoma
with the
yet.
Iron Bowl.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion on Oklahoma yet, but let's be real. First time traveling there as a conference rival, yeah, that's going to be intense. That is going to be a fun atmosphere there.
Yeah, I mean, I can see 9-3, 8-4 as a possibility. That's not my official prediction, but
sure.
Just looking at the schedule, it's very likely. And I'll agree. I have heard some sensible Alabama fans that are like, well, I think we'll drop a few. But will they say that next year?
No. Not a chance.
No. If he goes 9-3 his first year, they're going to expect 12-2.
I will say this. There's one game I have circled on the schedule that I'm seeing is a huge trap game for them. And if they lose that game, then you might see the Alabama fans go scorched earth.
I mean,
that's September 7th with South Florida. South Florida gave them everything they could handle last year, and
that was one of the weirdest games of the entire season.
Alex Golis, when he was offensive coordinator at Tennessee, he gave Alabama absolute fits. But that was a Nick Saban Alabama team. Can he do the same against a Kalen DeBoer Alabama team? That's early in the season. That's a watch for me.
Absolutely.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, well, and my mind goes to this. Okay. We've said this before on the show. You never want to be the guy to come after the legend. You want to be the guy that comes after the guy. Yes. And here's the thing. I know that there is nothing but pressure on Kalen DeBoer's shoulders. Like, that much is evident. There's no way to not think that. And I would hope that there would be some realization that, hey, this guy is not going to be Nick Saban. Nick Saban is a generational and will always be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, college football coaches of all time. And my question to both of you is, will the absence of Nick Saban change this team's dynamic so drastically that it's almost like a distraction this upcoming year?
I'm going to say no. And the reason I say that is because Nick Saban still is there. He has an office in Tuscaloosa. Like, he's still around. Obviously, his players are going to go to him for advice still. I know for a fact that's going to happen. So I think that there will be a type of change, but I don't think it's necessarily going to be a negative. So I think the biggest thing you're going to see really is you're either going to see a team that just comes together and clicks instantly and buys in, or you're going to see a genius move by a coaching staff that understands, hey, these players are used to this style of offense. We need to cater to what they're good at and evolve it together. If they can do that, this Alabama team is very scary because they got some dudes on this team this year.
Yeah, well, let's go down to the starting lineup. So I know you both have the rosters pulled up.
Sure.
Starting with the quarterback, Jalen Milroe, we've all seen what he can do. We've all seen the firepower that he has.
We've also seen where he lacks.
We also see where he lacks, right? Now, and that's the thing, is Kalen DeBoer more catering towards his style of quarterback? We'll see.
That's a good question because he's not Michael Penix.
No.
I mean, there's not really any comparisons in the two.
No.
I mean, really, I cannot think of hardly any comparison of them because, I mean, I felt like, honestly, I think that Milroe has a good arm, but until he improves on that deep ball, nothing matters. But see, the thing that saves him this year, though, is he can hand that rock off to Justice Haynes. And Justice Haynes is a dude. He is big. He's fast. And honestly, he might actually be one of the breakout stars in the SEC this year.
There you go. Yeah, I mean,
I've actually got a different breakout star for Alabama this year.
Okay.
okay, go for it.
Ty Simpson.
Yeah.
I will not disagree there because Ty Simpson actually fits the style that Kalen DeBoer runs a lot better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. And if Jalen Milroe starts to struggle, what can Kalen DeBoer do with Ty Simpson? We know he's talented. We know he can run. We know he can throw. What can DeBoer do with him to get him to the next level where he can take over an Alabama team and say, this is my team?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a very unlikely scenario because I feel like Jalen Milroe is going to be the guy, and I feel like he's going to be able to command the team and pretty much pick up where he left off at the end of the year.
But if he struggles in that offense, or injuries happen.
Sure,
he's been hurt before.
Sure,
been dinged up a little bit. What happens if he gets dinged up or he struggles in the offense? How quick do you pull that trigger?
Right.
Good point, because I mean the South Florida game is where Ty Simpson got to play last year, and then going to Camp Randall, if they drop a game early in the season, I feel like, if it's because of the quarterback play, that job's wide open.
Yeah,
and to be fair, Milroe technically isn't guaranteed the starting job at this point.
No, of course. I mean, nobody is.
Because right now is when they're going to decide that.
Because just because he's the most experienced, it's presumed. So let's get through this roster. So we know he's got running back talent around him in the backfield. That's going to help him tremendously. We know he can run himself. Receivers, right? He's got to have weapons. So what does Alabama bring in as far as that goes?
You got Kendrick Law, you have Kobe Prentice, both of those are juniors, but then you have a transfer coming in, Jeremy Bernard, who actually played at Washington and Michigan State. So, I mean, there is some talent there, but then you have to really go a little bit deeper when you have the huge prospect of Ryan Williams, who was a 5-star receiver. Everybody wanted him. Kenny the Eagle said, we're getting Ryan Williams. We're getting Ryan Williams.
Every day.
Well, Ryan Williams is on the Crimson side. And I could see him actually having a breakout season if he clicks well with the quarterback, whoever that is, which, I mean, I'm going to just assume Milroe at this point. But if them two click, I could see him getting in that starting lineup, because that's the one area that Alabama has lacked in the last few seasons is at wide receiver. For some reason, they have just not had that guy.
Right.
And I mean, and I'm probably going to be wrong on this, but wasn't their last good receiver Jameson Williams?
I mean, they had, I guess.
I mean, they've had fine receivers, but they've had drop issues. I mean, Jermaine Burton was nothing special. I mean, he can punch a Tennessee fan in the face on the field, but I mean, realistically though, I mean, Jermaine Burton, I'm no hate to the guy, but he just never impressed me. I feel like at Georgia, I feel like he was like missing something. And then he comes to Alabama, fresh start, and I felt the same thing. I felt like there's something missing in his game. And maybe I'm wrong, but there's something.
I don't think you're wrong there. I don't think you're wrong there. His route running is suspect. Go ahead, Chris. What were you going to say?
So it's interesting. He brings up Kobe Prentice and Kendrick Law. Right now, I'm checking up on their practices and everything. Right now, Jeremy Bernard and Emmanuel Henderson Jr. They're dominating in the practice with Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, and Ryan Williams coming up behind them.
Really?
So it's not even a given that Prentice and Law are going to be the guys.
Yeah. Interesting.
That brings up an interesting point, because Kalen went out and got a bunch of transfers. And this might be, now don't quote me on this. So if you're an Alabama fan and I say this wrong, don't string me up by my toenails. But would this be considered the most, the Alabama, basically the Alabama team with the most transfers on it? because I feel like Kalen went out and got a lot. And I know that there was, some transfers when the transfer portal first started or whatever, but Nick primarily stayed with his guys. I mean, there were some transfers that came in. There was a lot that went out that couldn't play immediately. And there's a big question mark because there's a lot of guys that Kalen brought in, right? But can they gel together as a team? Just because you have success somewhere else doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to gel together and have that cohesiveness that you need for a team. So,
yeah, you're looking about 12 transfers on the team this year.
Yeah. So we have
not
12
all of them
guys.
Well, I think 1 or 2 of them had come in during the Saban era, though. So they're not like new transfers.
Okay. So 10 or 12 guys. And Kalen did go out and get some guys. So, it is a question mark. It's how are they going to gel with the Nick Saban players? You got two totally different coaching styles. That, you got one part of your team was coached and basically brought up by the GOAT himself. And these transfers coming in are straight, brand spanking new Kalen DeBoer, new Alabama era. So it's going to be a balance. It's going to need to be a balance between those two worlds, right? Those two worlds collide into one team. Looking at Alabama, I know we're staying in the offense. But moving to defense, right? Alabama still has quite a bit of, studs. The recruiting speaks for itself.
Yes.
They've returned some players.
They do. Mm-hmm. But so there is one player though that they got that I think actually can be a difference maker for them if he makes the starting lineup, and that's LT Overton from Texas A&M. Highly touted kid, and when he hit the transfer portal, a lot of people wanted him. And the one good thing for them though is their defensive line, fantastic. There's, as always, very good. At linebacker, realistically, I don't really see any holes on this defense just looking at it. And then they have veteran Malachi Moore coming back, which I used to work with his dad so I was actually working with his dad before he committed to Alabama. I was putting LSU in his head so much too. I tried. It didn't work. But no, so they got Malachi Moore, who's a graduate student this year, coming back in their secondary, which is huge for them. They've got Damani Jackson coming in from Southern Cal, who great defender. Very, very good defensive back. So I think on defense, I think they're going to be fine. I don't think they'll be as dominant as in the past, but I do think that they're solid. So
let me ask you a question before we give our predictions. What do you think the biggest difference between Nick Saban and Kalen DeBoer is?
Oh, I got that. Kalen DeBoer is he has a baseball mindset, and when he was the offensive coordinator at Sioux Falls, he was actually the assistant baseball coach as well.
Oh,
he played left field for him.
Wow.
So I think the biggest difference is Kalen DeBoer is a morning person.
Mm-hmm.
And they've actually, their fall practice this year, they're doing morning practices instead of afternoon practices.
Interesting.
Yeah, little nugget there that, that's some people that affects an entire football program.
Mm-hmm.
If you're used to doing it one way and somebody comes in and changes it and does it another way, you got a big difference. For me, defensively, this Alabama team, they might have the best inside linebacker combination in the country with Dante Lawson and Jihad Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The two combined for 133 tackles last year, 9.5 tackles for loss.
That's pretty dang impressive right there.
If they can get that kind of production from them again, that helps the secondary. That helps the defensive line. And Kane Womack is, he's actually pointing out some freshmen that look to play a lot of time in this defense this year. So I think with that combination at linebacker, they're going to be solid.
And then not to miss out as well, they got Graham Nicholson coming in from Miami, Ohio to take over the kicking duties, and that kid's got a leg on him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree entirely. And so as we wrap up tonight, because we got about 5 minutes left, before we jump out of here, we want to thank you for joining us. Let's give our prediction for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Cody, you go first.
Yeah, looking at it, I think they beat Western Kentucky this year, even though that is actually a very interesting game with TJ Finley, formerly of LSU, Auburn, and Texas State, being the new quarterback at Western Kentucky. Obviously, South Florida is an interesting matchup because of last year. I got them at 2-0 right there. The Wisconsin game, I've gone back and forth. I said they're going to win and lose in multiple different predictions. Tonight's show, I'm going to say they slip up and take their first L. Take second L against Georgia, and they're 2-2 going into Vanderbilt. I think they win in Nashville, but I think that game actually is not as dominating as it should be. I think Alabama will give Vanderbilt fans, Chris, hope, and but I think they'll be 3-2 after that. I think they beat South Carolina, go 4-2. I'm gonna go. They're gonna lose at Tennessee and be 4-3 right there. They're gonna beat Missouri. They're gonna lose to LSU, be 5-4 at that point. Beat Mercer, beat Oklahoma, and beat Auburn. They're gonna go 8-4 this year.
Wow, Chris.
So I have them losing to South Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee. I have them sitting at 9-3. I don't think that game at Oklahoma is even close. And that's not a dig at Oklahoma. I just think Alabama has anticipated this game for so long that they're gonna walk in there and throw their weight around a little bit. The reason I'm picking them to lose to South Florida, Alex Golis has just got some weapons down there. And they're doing it under the radar. They haven't got the spotlight on him. And that dude that's going to be a program to have to be dealt with.
Sure.
I just think they have the playmakers that can make plays in space that have always given Alabama problems.
They can. It won't happen this year. But I'm going to tell you right now, Cody, if they are 2-2 after the Georgia game, Birmingham might be on fire. Tuscaloosa might be on fire. I mean,
I'm going to walk around the city with a smile on my face.
If they are 2-2 coming out of Georgia, coming out of that Georgia game, oh my goodness.
I don't want a 2-2 Alabama team coming to Nashville.
No, that is dangerous. I don't need to break it down very much. I had them losing to Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU. I think 9-3 is safe. They may drop one more. If they do, it would be Auburn, because that's going to be probably the closest game on that schedule. So I'm going to say 9-3 and lock it in.
All right.
So
there we go. Consensus 8-4 or 9-3.
8-4, 9-3. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Hey, make sure you tune in to the live show. Those are Monday nights, 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. So don't miss out on that. We appreciate you guys so much. Stay golden. We will see you next time.